welcome to today's lecture. So, today we'll be looking at techniques for idea generation. We'll continue with the previous lecture that we had. So, we'll start with storyboarding. And you may remember as a child when you read comic books. So, for example, Tintin, Archie's, Chacha Chaudhary. So, those books displayed stories on the page, right? And but still we could enjoy the comic book. We derived some knowledge also from it. It told us about the culture and people's feelings, how they talk, how they converse. So we learned quite a bit from those stories in childhood. So similarly, this technique that we use, which is storyboarding, here also we visually represent the whole process of how the user will be interacting with our product and what kind of challenges the user may face. It also covers the emotional feelings and other things that the user will experience during this process. So, let us understand this with the help of an example. So, maybe we can just imagine that there is a user who is at work and he is hungry and he wants to order something to eat. So, how will we go about creating the storyboard, keeping this consumer in mind, so that the application that we are developing at every stage of from the thought coming into the mind of the user till the time the product is delivered in the hands, the whole journey is very smooth. So here I'll explain by breaking the steps of procuring this product that the user wants, which in this case is lunch. So the first step here will be where the user will open the app. Now here we can see that creating primary personas on the screen we can see. So we'll create a persona first of the user who is in this situation. Now we create personas as per the demographic, where we combine their wants, their needs together, and then we come up with a fictitious character like I have explained in one of the previous lectures as well. So here we will create this user persona who is maybe a young professional and he doesn't get much time to catch his lunch. So what would that person do in this scenario? So now the first step, like I said, was the user opening the app, and here we will see in the storyboard visually, we'll see that this user is hungry at work and he decides to eat. So now what he does is he unlocks his phone and he goes to the application where he can find all these places from where he can order his food. And the thought that is going into his mind at this time probably is that, I'm hungry, I want to eat something healthy. So now the second step in this ordering procedure will be browsing through the different restaurants that are offering food. So now he will scroll through the available options and he will probably use some filters because he has decided to have healthy food. So probably he will use some filters to filter out the options which are offering healthy food, and then he will scroll through the pictures. So what the storyboard we will see would be pictures of all these different types of food that is being offered by different restaurants, and then he will think that what are the healthy options that I can get quickly which are nearby. Now the next step, he will be selecting a meal. So of course, out of all the options that he sees, he will see that Caesar salad probably is a good choice for today. And then we will see on the storyboard that how out of different options he's going for the Caesar salad, where the nutritionist value and the maybe the vitamins and other important information is displayed so that the user can make an informed choice. Then coming to the payment, because the choice has been made, so now he will be offered with various payment methods like debit card, credit card, UPI, and maybe cash on delivery. And so this will allow him to see whether there are any hidden charges, whether the taxes are fine, is there any discount, and all of those added features that these apps sometimes offer. And then he will proceed to the payment. Once the payment is done, now it is time for tracking the delivery. So now of course he will be a little impatient because it's lunchtime and he will be looking at the application to find that it mentions that order will be delivered in 15 minutes, and then he can also track the delivery guy live location. So that will give him a reassurance that, okay, so 15 minutes I can wait. That is pretty quick for me to get my order in my hand. So now he is reassured. And finally is the delivery time, when the delivery person hands over the package to the user and the user accepts it while he's smiling and he's happy, and he opens the package and he's then enjoying his lunch. So we can see that how, breaking the entire process into smaller bits, we have gone into identifying that what all steps will take place and how the user will ultimately receive his order and finally will enjoy, which is the ultimate goal of this application, where they want the user to get their satisfaction. And also they will be able to see that during the entire process, during the entire storyboarding process, when we are depicting the scene visually in front of us, it could be on paper, it could be digitally. So we'll also be able to see if there are any hiccups that the user may encounter and how do we take care of those and what kind of feeling. So like we saw in the end how the user accepted it happily, smiling. So that shows the emotion where he's happy and apprehensive about the timing of the delivery. So that storyboard also shows how the user is feeling at all of those stages, and the goal being that the user should be satisfied, he should be get a positive experience, he should not be frustrated, and how this whole process can take care of that. So we can see that why we use storyboarding. So it is because we are trying to predict the user's experience with the product and we are aiming for a positive experience. Then also it helps understand the flow of interaction with the product. So we saw in the example that how from the thought coming to the mind till the product in the hand, how this flow took place, what were the steps involved here. Clear sense of what is important to the user. So we realize that time is important, maybe filters are important, of course, because sifting through hundreds of restaurants probably will be too time consuming, and time is of the essence here because he wants to have a quick lunch. So the timing, the hidden costs that are very clearly displayed. So all of those things are communicated to us, that what is important for the user and how can we integrate those things. And it can help in recognizing the frequently needed and used features. So of course, you may also notice that over time in some of these e-commerce websites, when they see some kind of pattern being repeated by the user, so they prompt the user if they would want to place the order again. So it is sort of a function wherein they are trying to understand the user's behavior, and then they are prompting or nudging the user towards those products that they have been purchasing in the past, and the application feels that the user may want to purchase them again, but maybe it has slipped their mind. So it is like maybe a reminder kind of a thing, we can think of it. Now, worst possible idea, we have discussed this in one of the previous lectures as well, and I will just maybe quickly go over some parts that we will take a look at today, which we may not have covered last time. So we know how important generation of ideas is and how it can really put a lot of pressure on the team, because they have to come up with good ideas that are feasible, viable and are desirable. So this whole pressure can be very much weighing on the team, and this method, which is the worst possible idea, this method is something which takes this pressure off the team, because here the team is not looking at the successful idea or a good idea, but they are trying to come up with the worst ideas. And it is always better to come up with worst ideas. If you practice this yourself, you will also find that we are very good at criticizing. Human beings have this knack for being very critical. So getting the worst ideas is probably going to come very easily to us. So here the pressure is off, the creativity is flowing, the team's morale is boosted, because again the pressure is not there, right? And of course there is no limitation on the number of ideas or how silly the idea is, quite similar to the brainstorming session that we had seen earlier. But here we are brainstorming about the worst possible idea. And then once this idea we have explored, then of course we are going to be reversing these ideas to come up with the idea that will actually be implemented, because now we know that what is it that the user does not want, or something that the user will not like and will be frustrated with. So now we will be reversing our worst ideas and converting them to plausible ideas and positive ideas. So let us understand this also with the help of an example. So if the team has been given the challenge to come up with an idea for a user experience for a food app, let's take the same example we took in the previous process. So a food delivery application has to be designed, and this is a challenge given to the team. So when the team sits for the brainstorming session, so of course they have to come up with the worst possible idea. So ideas may be thrown around the room. For example, very slow application which is opening very slowly, hidden charges, so the user doesn't know what is he paying for. There is 150 rupees added, but he isn't sure what it is for. So of course it is frustrating not to know what it is. Now maybe he wants to call the customer care to understand what it is, but there is no way he can connect with the customer care. He may also encounter that the language in which the information is presented, he may not be aware of it. Maybe it is a style which is too old and not keeping up with today's style of conversation. Or maybe he may find that while he's finally making the payment, the again and again the payment is not getting through, and he has to fill his information all over again, address, card details, everything all over again. So again it is frustrating for him. So once we have come up with these worst ideas of how the user will experience this application, so now the team will put their heads together and they will discuss and evaluate these worst ideas that they have come up with, and then they will identify that why is the user frustrated. So it is taking too much of time to load, the navigation is very difficult, maybe every page has a different type of a navigation. In one page the cart is on the right, on the next page the cart is on the left side, so there is no consistency when it comes to design language. So some kind of these problems. Now to reverse these problems and to come up with the right kind of application that we want, which where we started with the brief of giving a positive user experience to the user. So now we will look at these problems from the other side, and we will be turning these insights into actions. So the team, after the evaluation process, has probably identified certain key factors which are important for designing this user friendly application, which are that processing time, the feedback time from the application should be minimum, it should be very quick. Or the other, which is that the payment gateway should be easy to access. There should not be any breakdowns, because of course this is a very sensitive information the user is entering. The language should be as of the trend or how we speak nowadays, not in some Victorian language maybe, for example. And then the hidden costs that are there. So rather than just in the bracket putting 150 rupees, breakdown of these 150 rupees, GST, delivery charges, and something else if it is applicable. And also the accessibility for to the customer care, because the user needs help, so the customer care should be available whether through the messenger or through call, and also in different languages if possible, so that the user can converse with them. So you see how the worst ideas that we explored, now we are converting them into actions and then implementing in the design. So the next method here is provocation. So as the name suggests, provocation is, or provocate is basically when we provocate somebody, when we are, for example, if somebody is teasing someone, they are provocating them or pulling somebody's leg. So it's it's like provocation negative sense. Here we are using it for a positive purpose, which is to come up with ideas which are not maybe very traditional or not very straightforward, but provoking our minds, provoking our brain to come up with something which is not really the standard norm. So we can see that it is a lateral thinking technique, and every time we have lateral thinking technique, it will, and which we see in the design process usually. So it is generally a thinking which is not very linear, not very straightforward, not something where we arrive at the answer very quickly, but we are exploring the field. And here also we are doing the same in this technique. And so this process also helps with the creativity flow. It helps the team come up with interesting creative ideas, and also it can be used to optimize and improve the processes and product, and encourages new realities and brings in unconventional ideas to get better design. So let us again take an example, understand with the help of an example. So now suppose a team is sitting and they are discussing, and the challenge is to come up with the design of a car, and they are thinking of how to come up with a new, different, innovative car, for example. So one provocative statement could be like, what if there were no wheels in the car? So this is a thought provoking statement, because we are used to seeing, cars with wheels on the road. So whether it is a four wheeler or whether it's a three wheeler, two wheeler, we see wheels. So it will be a very shocking kind of an idea or a statement to hear that what if there are no wheels in the car. And the purpose of provocation is to actually shock and give some information which is not the standard information, not something which is expected. So this will help the team think from a different perspective, because suddenly our whole reality has shifted and we are now imagining a car without wheels. So in this particular method, it is also again like other similar methods, the judgment is to be kept on the side. So because this method clearly is to provoke brain activity, so judgment is not encouraged at all, and the team is going to then think about this provocative statement about cars without wheels, and then they will generate some ideas. So for example, one may say that why doesn't the car have wheels? So this question will gather some answers. Another question may be, what alternatives to wheels could there be? So now the team will also maybe brainstorm about what other methods can be there for the car to run without wheels. And another question could be, how could this concept lead to new solutions for transportation? So now the car is only the medium from where this question came up, but now the team is taking it forward and thinking about the entire transportation system, that how can the this be applied to the entire transportation network. And just to give a small example, the trains that run on the magnetic channels, so these are the trains which do not have any wheels. So because of the difference in the charge in the magnets that are there on the track on the train, so the trains, they hover over the track and they run without the wheels, and they have certain advantages because they can go to top speed and smoother ride, but of course the cost is higher. But it's just to say that without wheels things do exist, and probably the team may have done some kind of a brainstorming session, or may have come up with certain crazy ideas to arrive at trains without wheels. So you can see that how when we are coming up with a provocative statement, how this is giving rise to these questions, and the answers are also giving rise to maybe more questions, and then taking it to a much larger scale in this particular problem that we are discussing. So now, since the perspective of the team has shifted, because they are now thinking about the transportation system without wheels, so after exploring all of their ideas, now they will come back to the practical problem that they are solving here. So now, since the perspective of the team has shifted, so now the team will come back with their ideas that they have explored, and now they will be looking at the more practical problem that they have at hand. And so the ideas that they have generated, they will see that how they can be used to the main problem, which is to come up with this innovative car. And finally, they will refine these ideas and come up with the final concept. But we can see that if they had not applied this provocation method, then they may not have come up with some ingenious ideas, and they may have just probably been following the standard, you know, design that cars do have. Now, next is role playing. So, this also we have discussed briefly in the previous lecture. And what we saw was that it is a fun activity, it is a creative activity, physical activity where role playing is done to understand the challenges that are faced by the user in certain given situations. In the last lecture, we had seen that how the kiosk was created at the airport, and we had different user groups. We had the person who was in a hurry to check in, then we had somebody who was on a wheelchair, and we had an elderly person, and how all these three groups had different problems, and how these problems, when they were observed by the team, how they could find the solution that would fit and would make this whole journey to the airport's kiosk very easy for them. So we can see here that it involves acting out a scenario, the character, situation, and it can be both structured and semi-structured. So structured is a term which means that we have a very structured activity in front of us. So we know that what is to be done exactly, that we have steps A, B, C, D in front of us, and that is how the team will role play. And the semi structured is where it is a little flexible, so where the character is free to play along, and that will also tell the team that what some of the users may do which is not expected, because the product or the service that any user uses, so there is no guarantee, or there is, one should not assume that the user will use it the way it is intended to be used. So the user may use it however they feel they want to use it, so one has to be ready for it. So semi structured comes very useful in understanding those kind of behaviors for which we are not really ready for, and this tells us that this is another way in which the character or the user may interact with our product. So role playing can be done at both the ideation stage and also in the prototyping stage, and like I said, it is an immersive activity. So it gives the, like I said, it's an immersive activity, so it allows the designer to put themselves in the shoes of the user and immerse themselves in their experience, and also enables a deeper empathic experience and understanding of how the user is feeling and the frustrations that they are facing. So what do we do? So I have already discussed this as well, that in the structured there is a script, in the semi-structured role play there is really not much of a script, or maybe there will be just pointers, some broad points which the user or the character in this case will have to touch upon, and then rest of it will be very impromptu. And this process is recorded and documented, and then it is studied to find the lacunae that are there in the service that we are offering or the product we are offering. For example, an application, that how the user is using it, what challenges they are facing, and a variety of tools and technologies like AR, VR is also used to create that kind of an environment where it is realistic. So we can see that application of role playing is in all areas where humans interact with machines. And now this could be people with disabilities, it could be for people with permanent disabilities or even temporary disabilities, elderly, children, people who are healthy. So the team navigates their experiences, puts them in their shoes, and if they are, say, trying to see what a person with visual impairment, how would he navigate? Then probably they will put a blindfold on their eyes. Of course, it is not going to replicate what the person who is visually impaired, how he goes about his daily life, but it will to some extent give a little bit of an experience to the team member, that how that person, the difficulties that they may face in navigating. So of course, giving maybe the tactile tiles where required, or the information with the help of braille where required. So in the lifts we see that when we have these buttons, there are these tiny dots that are there. So those are in braille, which tells people with visual impairments that which floor, what does the button stand for. So for one floor, the braille will be with number 1 and so on. So affinity mapping is another method which was developed by Japanese anthropologist Jiro Kawakita, and he worked a lot with Nepalese villagers. He came up with very much required solutions like potable water and how to cross over from one mountain to the other in those village areas. So he came with those zip liner solutions. And this method, affinity mapping method, which is also known as the KJ method. So Jiro Kawakita believed that this method, which is affinity mapping method or also the KJ method, this is equivalent to the quantitative methods that were developed earlier in the West. And this method is very efficient in clustering the information and organizing the research findings done by the team, and also to sort and analyze the design ideas in the ideation steps that are undertaken by the team. So they also help to synthesize information, insights, and it's used in other steps of design thinking such as define and ideate. And also other names of the techniques are collaborative sorting and also snowballing. So since till this stage where we have reached here, the team may have collected tons of data. So there will be a huge amount of data, and that data sometimes can be very overwhelming, and it needs to be organized and structured in order to make it more useful for the team to for the next steps that are coming up. So this is where this step of affinity mapping, this is where it helps by helping organize this data. Also, this is used in analyzing different types of data like verbal data, survey, developing a theme, relationship between the themes, and also to take care of complex situations, to create hierarchy, and similar other things. So this is very helpful in collating all of this type of data, and it makes sure that the entire team's ideas and observations are represented and the ideas are broken down into organized groups of information. So now how do we do this? So we can see here the diagram here, that how all the ideas are together, they are bunched together, and later in the bottom we can see 3 different groups. So what is usually done is that all the ideas are put down individually on the sticky notes, and then these sticky notes are arranged, or we can say, or we can say they are clustered as per their nature of similarity. So similar types of sticky notes, will put them together, and then we will get different groups out of all these sticky notes that we began with. So if we say, for example, started with 100 sticky notes, then we will have maybe 20 in one, 10 in second, 40 in third, and so on. So all the 100 will be divided, and maybe now we will have 5 different groups under which all these 100 sticky notes are coming up. So now when we are clustering them, so now these, like I said, these 100 are divided and we will probably have 5 groups. So each of these 5 groups will have something to offer to the team. So it could be the pain points of the user, it could be the issues that they are facing in the usability, or their preferences, or the future requirements that they would want in this particular product. So depending on the product or service, these groups will reflect a certain similar pattern that we will see. So now let us take a small example and understand this. So again, if that a food app we take, and now the different ideas that we are getting is that I want this application to load faster. Another user says I want transparency in the payment. Another says that I want to know all my favorite meals that I have been eating so I can make my choice quickly. Or for example, it is difficult to navigate the menu sometimes. So there will be many such these requirements that the user will send. And now how will we group them together? So after writing down these key points, again say on these sticky notes, the team will start putting them together. Again, one is that we can have the headings from the beginning itself. So we can have, say, navigation or recommendation, idea, something like that. Or we can start putting the sticky notes based on their similar features and then come up with the title of the particular group. So now we are grouping the similar ideas. So then we can see that maybe in performance and speed, we will see that I want the app to load faster, or I want the delivery tracking to be accurate. So now we know that they are quite similar. So we'll put them in this basket. Another basket will probably be the customer service. I want quick customer service. Another basket may be on some options. I want more options here. Another could be on the maybe navigation and usability, that it is tough to navigate, it is not user friendly. So we will get all these baskets, and then we will know in each of these baskets that what are the problems or what are the challenges and maybe some wants that the users have. So once we have now put these sticky notes and we have grouped them together, so now we can see that some patterns are emerging out of it. So we will get some headings, we can get those titles of these groups, say performance of the application, usability, customization, customer service, notification, delivery. So we get all of these headings, and now the team knows that under each of these baskets or headings we have these challenges. So now they can take these challenges one by one and find the solution for them. So we can see here that dot voting is one method. We will also discuss this in the next few slides. So dot method is used here to prioritize what is more important. So for example, they may figure out from these clusters that we have made that maybe delivery time or the tracking of the delivery is really important for the user. So a lot of requirements are coming from that angle of tracking the delivery person, or that the current tracking is not accurate. So which tells the team that this is to be taken on priority, because this is really discouraging the user from placing order on the application, because this application is not communicating in a transparent manner where has the person reached. So the footfall is getting lesser. So of course this becomes a priority for the team to take up as a the problem to solve, maybe in the as a, so this becomes a problem which is on priority for the team to solve. And now once the organization is done, the product, and once the organization is done, the collected information is used to produce empathy maps, problem statements, and user persona to help progress in the design. Now Sketchstorm is also a method of idea generation. And now one interesting thing with idea generation is that when we are looking at all of these lateral methods of idea generation, what is important and what is the team looking for is something which is very spontaneous. Now, the thing with the human brain is that if it gets too much time to think about a certain problem to come up with a solution, the brain will start thinking very logically. And logic here means that coming up with a solution which is very familiar, or which they have seen already, or which is existing, and not really pushing the boundary of the creativity. So that is the problem with the human brain, that if too much time is given, so we go back to what is comfortable. And you will notice that in most of these lateral thinking procedures, they are quick methods. Like brainstorming is a quick method, we don't have to think too much. Even the verse idea generation is also a quick method where we are not worried about what kind of ideas we are throwing around. Similarly, here also the sketch storming as well, we are also again quickly sketching out the idea, because we are giving us a time frame within which we will be coming up with a number of sketches to solve the problem at hand. So of course, once the ideas have been generated, then one can sit and we know that there are methods, there are ways, there are several steps through which those ideas will have to further pass. It's not like any crazy idea will go and will be produced. Every idea will go through those sifts and it will be sifted, and then only few will pass through and finally one will get through. So but it's very important in the beginning of the idea generation process that we come up with many ideas and we are not really thinking about quality, but we're looking at the quantity of the ideas, because from the quantity that we have generated we can then further streamline and come up with a better quality idea. So here we can see that this is a fast way for designers to define the problems and come up with solutions, and this can be also done either on paper or also digitally, and this enables us to escape from thinking qualitative, and so this also helps us open up our mind and not think from the qualitative restriction and encourages open-ended thinking. So how to do sketch storming? Now, some advantages of sketch storming is that it helps us see the idea in front of us in reality. So it is not just in the brain, but it's also on the paper in front of us, so we can analyze it further. And also for this particular method, one doesn't need to have very good sketching skills. Somebody who can just handle paper pencil can also come up with their basic ideas, which will obviously be refined later on. So in a sketch storming session, the designer will quickly come up with sketches in a given time frame, and the other members will also guess what it is. So it could be, say, the interface of a food application, and then maybe they want to revise, they want to make it more streamlined for some better experience for the user, and then the answers are then noted down. When a team is guessing what it is, they're noted down, they are discussed, and this process of reiteration is done and the ideas are built on top of it. So we saw today some techniques that how we can generate these ideas, which is the starting point of coming up with a solution, and keeping an open mind and using these lateral thinking processes can help stretch the boundary of the human brain, or can also let more creativity enter into the space, which will help come up with better solutions for the users. So we'll end this lecture here today, and I will see you all in the next lecture. Thank you.